Alright guys, so you joined me today in my BMW and I've got a really good video out rod bearings. BMW and rod bearings, well, it's chocolate chips and cookies, right? If it's not happening, there's discussion about it happening and a lot of people just don't know how common it is. It's there, unfortunately. It can be an issue on some vehicles. These are high performing vehicles. Obviously, we know of the models that the rod bearings are really common with, the likes of your M5 and your M6s and your M3, as well as some of the other cars as well, especially with that S85 engine, the E60 S85 V10, and then the S65 engine in the M3, which is derived from that S85 engine. Obviously that rod bearing issue follows it along, the N63 motor, but some of the N55 motors. So I've got a BMW M235i here. Some of those engines as well, the N55s, have had rod bearing issue. It's not very common and it occurred on the earlier cars, especially reports. I personally, and I've discussed this with many people and I've had a chat with my mechanic as well, personally, it doesn't look to be a very common issue, but it has happened. I've had a chat to people on my page. I've had a chat to people generally who have said, oh look, it happened to them as well. So this video is actually pretty interesting because I'll cover off something that you might not actually know about. And I spoke to my mechanic about it and I said, look, I've got the N55 motor and the M235i. Should I be concerned about my rod bearings, right? And he said, yeah, you should probably be concerned if you've done, if you've got an oil filter housing gasket that's leaking, in that sort of and I was like, what do you mean? How are those items related? Rod bearing and a leaking oil filter housing gasket? That's common BMW stuff, that's bread and butter. And interesting conversation we had is, well, this applies to all BMWs, right? But more to the N55 engine because of its revised VANOS. And it applies when you do a service that interrupts the engine's oil supply circuit. And that service includes the oil filter housing gasket replacement, right? That is something that does that, and the oil cooler fix, or things like fixing or replacing the oil pump. Basically, after doing these repairs, you must follow a special procedure to ensure that the oil has been circulated through your engine with good pressure. It's called priming the engine, right? And you guys know I'm not a fix-it-yourself guy, right? It's not what my channel is about. It's not what the brand's about. But a lot of you in the comments, or you might say, look, I know what priming an engine is. Well, it was so bad that BMW had to release a technical bulletin, right, in 2015, the procedure you need to follow in these cars for priming your engine after doing one of these services, right? So it was obviously serious enough where BMW had to produce a technical bulletin. And speaking to my mechanic as well, he was sort of outlining how that technical bulletin is important to follow. And I'll link it in the comments or the description of this video, whichever platform I posted on. But if you're doing the repairs yourself or you're having a shop do it, right? If you're doing it yourselves, just read the technical bulletin, make sure you follow it. If you're going to a non-BMW shop, often they're not aware of these things, right? An oil filter housing gasket, they might just change the gasket, put it back on, and that's it. And that could actually destroy your rod bearing. So speak to my mechanic, and obviously BMW did a service bulletin on it. So obviously it was a thing that BMW noticed. It can destroy your rod bearings, right? It's not the other stuff you think with the N55, like revving the engine or whatever, but it's this little beast, right? And a lot of people have had to do their oil filter housing gaskets. It's a common part of BMW ownership, regardless of the engine you have. So if you're getting a shop to do it, make sure they've heard about this bulletin, they utilize it. And if you're getting it done by a good, reputable BMW shop, they'll have this on hand and they'll know how to do it. So yeah, I just wanted to share that bit of perspective with you guys.